Hey there, I'm Sully, and welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, today is going to be probably an interesting stream of sorts. I'm going to possibly step on a couple of landmines, a couple of rakes, who knows. I did put it up on both YouTube and the Rumble channel. Was going to put it out on the Kick channel also, but wasn't quite sure how the stream would interface with that. So I'm running on YouTube and Rumble, simulcasting it to both of them. I've got the chats open in both YouTube and Rumble, so we can get possibly a little feedback on what I'm going to say. I may say a thing or two that sort of offends people, but folks, as I said in the post, so much has happened since last we spoke. It has been one hell of a week in this country. And it's honestly kind of sad in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of, stupidity. I'll say stupidity, recklessness, reckless disregard for human life by a bunch of individuals and have done some really dumb stuff. And, it is what it is. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 4 incidents, and then we're going to sort of try to find a common thread with those incidents. And if we do find a common thread with those, we may be able to find some other common threads and a way to address it. And that's the big one, a way to address it. And so if you're watching this, I hope you stay through all the way to the end. If you would be so kind as to, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, hit the Rumble button, whatever the case may be, pound the plusy as case may be. Go ahead, let us know what you think. Throw something in the chat, throw something in the comments if you're watching this later on. I really want to hear what the thoughts are on this, because we may have found, I won't say the perfect solution or a perfect solution, but we may have found something to address some of the insanity that we're seeing developing in our country as a whole. And I will say insanity because well, folks, for lack of a better term, I'd say we got about 50 shades of stupid going on, and that 50 shades of stupid is resulting in some pretty bad consequences. And these consequences, unfortunately, are borne out in a lot of neighborhoods and borne out by a lot of, shall we say, our most vulnerable citizens, our youngest citizens. And some of these consequences are lifelong. Young lives being snuffed out by just idiocy of the highest order. So, without any further ado, I want to give a little bit of backstory. My office didn't have anyone here working on the 4th. We all had a wonderful 4th of July. Hope you all did too. It was kind of funny. My neighbors on both sides of me, they were playing with all kinds of cool fireworks and everything else. And I was texting a friend of mine. I went outside, sat on my back patio, and I watched their show for free. Had a couple of adult beverages, ate some hot dogs, felt that was about as American as apple pie. Didn't do the Nathan's hot dog eating challenge, actually did the big Costco quarter pounder jobs. But, I was laughing because, they had things that made big flashes and big booms. And I kind of laughed when I was texting to a friend of mine. They asked me how my 4th was. And I said, oh, I'm watching all the big flashes and booms at all my neighbors' houses and enjoying the show. And they said, well, that's cool. And I said, I got some stuff in my safe that could probably make a bigger flash or a bigger boom, but might be seen as a little bit inappropriate. So I left it alone and just sat out there and watched them. So Wednesday, we got talking about it in the office. And one of the people who helps me sometimes doing research and building slide decks and different things that we use for the shows was asking me, man, did you see everything that happened this weekend? And I was, what do you mean? And they said, well, the shootings and this and that and the other. I said, oh, yeah, I saw stacks of it. I saw stacks of it continuously. And they said, well, there was a big shooting up in Baltimore, and there was another shooting. And I said, yeah, and there was a shooting here, and there was a shooting in Fort Worth last night, and there was a shooting, apparently early morning down Louisiana, and of course, we had a shooting up in Philly. Well, imagine that. And then, we looked and, the shootings and group shootings and block parties and family events that turned into shootings this week were crazy. But the interesting part to me was sitting there at 11:30 noon on Wednesday, sipping on my coffee. I said, the bad thing is, from what I've seen on all these shootings, especially these big group shootings, they're all going to fit into a certain category. and we're going to wait and we're going to deep dive. And they said, well, do you want to try to cover any of them this week? I said, I'll try to sort of put some information together, maybe a little bit early to get good information. As you all know, I try to wait until we can get good, solid information in before I start saying, okay, this is what happened, or definitively this, or definitively that. I try to wait and let the investigation take their course, and then I read, review multiple sources, and I try to put together and give you all a synopsis of kind of what's happened, or what the big deal is, or what we can glean out of these events. Because I think sometimes trying to be first, you don't always get it right. I'd rather be right than first. So again, a lot of information came through, and some of it good, some of it bad. I'm going to dispel maybe a couple of rumors about a couple things. But the interesting thing was, I told them, I said, I guarantee you, we're going to find the same stuff in common. A lot of these are going to be cookie cutter incidents. We're going to see the same pattern emerge. And she looked at me. Well, you really think so? I said, watch. When this comes out, when arrests start getting made, we're going to see these patterns emerge from these group events, these craziness events. And so we looked into them a little bit. And well, as you'll see later on in the week, I was kind of proven right. I wish I'd done a Tuesday or Wednesday stream and said, yeah, I predict all this is going to happen. And then I would have been on record. I didn't. You just sort of have to take my word for it. But I go through a lot of these shootings, and you'll see, maybe you'll notice the same pattern emerging as we go through some of these. Now, the first shooting we're going to talk about is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, this one fits the pattern a little bit, but not really well. Now, in Philly, we had a active shooter who went out of their house and just randomly began opening fire on people. Ended up with 5 dead, 4 injured. We ended up with victim ranges dead between 15 and 59 years old. There were some younger kids injured. I mean, literally 5, 6-year-old kids in cars getting shot as they're driving past. Totally indiscriminate, reckless fire, stupidity, going out and squeezing off rounds at anything that moved. The shooter turns out to be a 40-year-old male who was taken into custody by Philly PD after a foot pursuit. Hats off to them. They ran toward the gunfire, ran toward the shooter, dealt with the shooter. Once the shooter was cornered, they dropped the weapon and surrendered without incident. Just to note that this individual, again, was taken into custody and was not shot and killed by the PD. I know we often hear how the minute somebody, depending on their skin color, is going to be shot and killed the minute the PD gets involved. Well, this person was taken into custody without incident. Now, once he's in custody, he told the police he was doing it to help them clean up the neighborhood. Yes, he told them he was doing it to help them clean up the neighborhood. The gentleman was armed with an AR platform rifle and 2 handguns. The gentleman was actively wearing body armor and was going out to help the police clean up the neighborhood based on his own statements. He's their friend. He's a good guy. He does have a previous firearms conviction back in 2003. There is a rumor going out from Philly PD that one or all of the firearms the individual had were ghost guns. And this is going to be kind of important later when we talk about ghost guns. Now, again, a ghost gun is something that does not have a serial number attached to it. Why? It was made by an individual. Now, under ATF rules, under ATF laws, I can personally take materials and make a firearm myself out of them. Because I am not a manufacturer, I can make it for my personal use, and it will not have a serial number on it because it's made from raw materials that are non-serialized. However, I cannot sell or give this firearm to anyone, nor can I make one for someone else. So if you were to purchase the materials needed to make it, and I said, okay, give me those materials, I'll use my tools and make it for you, that would make me a manufacturer, and doing that without an FFL, that is a felony. I go bad jail. So the only way this individual could have ghost guns legally is if he made them himself. Now, Color me doubtful on that as we go a little bit deeper in this individual's background. I don't think he made them himself. I think he bought them illegally. Whoever sold them illegally, and he acquired them illegally, unless he made them himself. We don't know, and we don't know if they're all ghost guns. That has been one statement that came out there. Philly PD said, oh, we're trying to find out if they're actually ghost guns or not, but we're having trouble because the NRA is so mean to us. I don't know what the NRA had to do with that, but okay. Let's not throw rocks at the NRA. Find out if they're ghost guns or not, and if they are, where do you get them? Because whoever sold them, if you sell a ghost gun, you're now working as a manufacturer. If you build it and sell it, you're a manufacturer. If you build it for personal use, that's legal. So someone most likely committed a federal firearms felony in selling this to a third person, him, and him buying it, another federal felony. So most likely illegally obtained. The gentleman left a will dated late June of 2023. I believe it was June 23rd or 26th, the date on the will was. So there's a little bit of a issue going on there. Perhaps he was planning on dying in his efforts, but interestingly, he offered no resistance whatsoever to the PD, and he later told them he's doing it to help them clean up the neighborhood. Okay. Not the most pretty well grounded. I'm sure PD didn't want him to do this. It was not a positive thing. Now, this gentleman had exhibited a series of strange, bizarre behaviors recently. He lived in a house with 7 other people. One roommate stated that he had been wearing body armor in the days prior to the shooting and becoming progressively more agitated, screaming, yelling, carrying on. Everyone in the house talked about how they were avoiding him to avoid a confrontation, to avoid an incident. So if we're avoiding him to avoid an incident, he's wearing body armor around the house, carrying weapons around the house, more and more agitated. Now, they also stated that the family had been very concerned with the shooter's mental health for many years. Okay. Now, a lot has come out about his social media posts. His social media feed was really interesting. It's been deleted since then, however, courtesy of heavy.com. They did have a lot of it, and it's really interesting. He apparently is very anti-Joe Biden and states, that Joe Biden's coming for his freedoms, etc., etc. He is, however, very pro-Donald Trump, much more so pro-Trump than Biden. However, in the same sentence, he's also very pro-BLM and posted several BLM logos and fists, etc. So he's pro-Black Lives Matter, pro-Trump, anti-Biden, anti-ATF. It's kind of what we're at, which shows a complete lack of consistency, which to me, when I see that lack of consistency, it harkens back to, let's say, the Buffalo shooter who had a 185-page manifesto that was, talking about how, Ben Shapiro was awful, or Ben Shapiro was great, but the Jewish media was awful. And yet Ben Shapiro is one of the most prominent Jewish media commentators in the country. When you find an individual with that lack of consistency and that lack of stability, that tends to lead me to believe mental health as opposed to an ideological belief. It seems to me that, I think for the lack of a better term, loss of grip on reality. Now, another thing that has come out about this shooter, and it has been said, and I've seen it in a couple of different places, that the individual was supposedly transgender. Now, the individual's grandmother came out in an article by The Independent and stated that he was not transgender, that he just enjoyed dressing up in women's clothes from time to time. Okay. So whether or not he was trans, considering becoming trans, cross-dresser, transvestite, autogynephilia, any one of the numerous degrees of that, to me, that is about the least important thing about this individual. Quite frankly, I don't care if he was wearing boxers, briefs, or tighty whities, or, ladies' thong, if he's going out shooting people up. The fact that he's got possibly 2 or 3 ghost guns, the possibility that he's doing this post-firearm conviction, The fact that he's running around in the house with body armor, scaring or upsetting the people he lived with, I'm a lot more concerned with that than, what clothing he wears. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, there's pictures on here, you can find them on the internet, of him with long hair and braids and hoop earrings and everything else. Okay. I don't think he's trans. They stated he hadn't taken any steps to transition, that he just enjoyed playing dress up from time to time. You do you, boo, more power to you. I could really give two shits about that. I'm more concerned with what is prompting this. And to me, it's a progressive mental breakdown of some sorts. But it's a progressive mental breakdown among somebody with 2 or 3 illegal firearms. Now, as we go through, we're going to look at some others, the shootings this week, and you'll see sort of a through line here. Let's travel down the road from Philly to Baltimore. Now, Baltimore was an interesting one. Gunfire on the night of the 2nd or afternoon of the 2nd broke out at a block party. Left 2 people dead, 28 injured. Per Baltimore PD, there are at least 2 shooters, possibly more. All of these shooters are unknown as of the initial reports. None of them were there at the scene. No one contacted the police and said I was involved in this shooting, or it was self-defense, or I did this because he did that, or nothing. They do have numerous cameras, and they're really trying to piece together Ring doorbell footage and post-cam footage and everything else. It was at a city housing complex that doesn't look particularly great, doesn't look particularly bad, but they were trying to have a nice 4th of July block party. Woohoo. And 2 at least, maybe more. I think we may see more based on the number of casings and the number of people injured and all the stupidity, decided to go out and spray and pray and do 50 Shades of Stupid. Now, as of Thursday of this week, we had a quick update come out. There is a 17-year-old who has been arrested on numerous weapons-related charges. Now, I will say the individual has not been arrested related to anything with the shooting. Not been arrested for the shooting, not been that they shot someone or they squeezed off any rounds or they did any of the spraying and praying bullshit. No. But the individual has been arrested for weapons charges, including possession of multiple firearms. 17-year-old? Possession, multiple firearms? Now, we also need to remember, Maryland is kind of a strict gun state. You're not even allowed to have over a 10-round magazine. I'm not allowed to carry a gun in Maryland. I'm not even allowed to carry an empty magazine in my car with no bullets, no gun, no nothing. The mere act of me, a firearms instructor who's licensed in South Carolina to carry concealed, has reciprocity with 30-something states. If I cross into the great state of Maryland or the Commonwealth of Maryland and have a mere magazine, a 13-round magazine, standard capacity for one of my semi-Browning, in my possession, I can go to jail for that. They've got some of the toughest gun laws in the country. They're actually trying to, and you look last week's thing, they're actually trying to put more tough gun laws in. But yet we have a block party with 28 people injured and 2 dead, and cartridge casings all over the place. Folks, how are your gun laws working? They're not. And they openly stated that they were finding more and more guns coming from out of state. And then 5 days later, they come out and arrest a 17-year-old with numerous weapons. And they said that there were actually weapons that were illegal in the state of Maryland. There were weapons. The 17-year-old apparently had them in a car, had, a lot of stuff. So gun laws that are existing really didn't quite cut it for that one, I don't think. We're going to go a little deeper on this as we go through here. Let's go south to Fort Worth, Texas. We had a shooting there. The next day, shots rang out at the annual neighborhood festival. I believe it was the Como Festival, leaving 3 dead and 8 wounded. Now, per law enforcement, several unknown male shooters. Now, I hadn't looked either of these shootings up when we were sitting around chatting about them in the office on Wednesday. But if you notice, we're starting to find a pattern here. Several unknown male shooters. What was the last one? At least 2 shooters, all of which are unknown. What is happening? We're starting to see a pattern go here. Fort Worth, again, we get a little bit of a break in the middle of the week, and we find out that number update July 7th. 2 suspects have been arrested and charged. One is 19 and one is 20. And per Fort Worth Police Department, they're now stating they believe it was a gang-related incident. Okay. Let's see here. So, underage males, gang-related, a bunch of people wounded, a couple dead. Okay. Gee, didn't it seem like we just played this in Baltimore? I mean, Baltimore, 2 dead, 28 injured. This one, 3 dead, 8 wounded. Okay. Oh, let's see. Where else can we go? Well, as long as we're in the South, let's ride over to beautiful scenic Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, they had a block party over there for the 4th of July, and gunfire was exchanged. 4 dead, 7 injured. Per Shreveport PD reports the gunfire was exchanged for close to 10 to 15 minutes, with multiple male suspects engaging in exchange of gunfire, all of whom at the time of reporting are unknown. Gee, this is sort of following a pattern here. Let's put all these together. With the exception of the first one, all the shooters left the scene prior to the arrival of law enforcement. Good evening, Burbank, California. Welcome to the free state of South Carolina. Welcome to the Gun Club. Hope you enjoy at least what we're doing. We'll wait to hear what you have to say, because you may actually like what I'm going to say here a little bit down the road. But so we have, again, shooters leaving the scene prior to arrival of law enforcement. Shooters mostly described as young males. In each one of these, we have rapid, reckless, indiscriminate gunfire. And with the exception of the first one, we had multiple shooters involved. Now, when you put that little puzzle pieces together, and we say, okay, what is this going to tell us about the person or people involved in these shootings? Well, when you get the multiple shooters, the spray and pray quality of it, I mean, let's face it, fortunately, we only have 2 dead and 28 injured. That's not actually for quality shooting. That's typically the spray and pray garbage. Typically a lot more injured than we have, actually hit with rounds. There's always a couple of fatalities. Who knows how this happens, but lots and lots of rounds, not a lot of good hits, rapid, indiscriminate, reckless stupidity. Multiple shooters. Tells me, but when I look at the shooters as a whole, let's go one step further. Most likely, they're prohibited possessors. Most likely, they're either underage, they've got previous convictions, or they have stolen or otherwise dirty firearms, whether it's an illegal ghost gun. Again, I can legally make it for me, but if I sell it to you, it becomes illegal. So it's an illegal gun, or it's a previous conviction for a firearm in 2023, or how many of these are underage? We had a 17-year-old with a bunch of guns. We had a 19 to 20-year-old. Yeah. And we don't have any information yet on the previous criminal records of any of those individuals who've been arrested out of these shootings. But it says a lot to me when I look at the big picture about where the problem is coming from. Because all 4 of these shootings are a problem, and they need to be stopped. And we need to come up with a way as a society to stop this stuff. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. And I love every time we have a mass shooting, they say, oh, well, the gun lovers and the gun nuts are more concerned with their gun rights than they are with saving lives. No. I want to save lives. I believe in saving lives. I'm all for saving lives. But hey, how do we do it? How do we do it without causing a problem? Hey, remember, if you like us, if you like what you're hearing, if it makes sense to you, if it's good information, if it's stuff you haven't heard other places, share it out. Share it with your friends. Check out the rest of our video library. We have a whole library on Rumble of a whole bunch of good stuff on there. And if you have a question, feel free to email us. We're always up for that as well. So let's look here. These individuals, I will say, as a firearm owner, are not typical firearm owners. These are not your average everyday firearm owner. This is the worst of the worst of possessors of firearms. Most firearms owners are not reckless. Most firearms owners, if they're involved in a discharge of a firearm, are going to be there when law enforcement is there. They're going to say, yes, I did this, and it was self-defense because he pulled a knife, he pulled a gun. I was leaving the grocery store, and he came up to me with a broken glass bottle and started waving it around, so I drew my weapon because that's self-defense. These shootings, again, if they're spraying and praying and shooting and getting before law enforcement gets there, guess what? These are your problem children. And these problem children, and I say children, need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed appropriately. You know, they do not purchase or acquire firearms through any conventional method. So any law you make about how we're going to do it, or better background checks. The White House was talking today about we need more extensive background checks. These people, 16, 17 years old, didn't go through any background check to get any of these guns. We know that damn well. We should know very well that they're not doing it legally. They're buying this stuff on the street, and they'll openly ignore and disregard any and all firearms laws. The same law that tells me as a law-abiding citizen that I have to disarm myself if I walk into the great state of Maryland, they don't care. The same law that tells me that I can't walk into a block party and start indiscriminately spraying fire, they don't care. So we can pass all the laws in the world, but the laws are not going to affect the problem children. They'll only affect the people who obey the law. But the problem children are responsible for the vast majority of firearms-related crime. All four of these incidents that we're going over today, let's look at the first one, the Philly shooter. If he is a prohibited possessor, how'd he get the gun? Most likely bought it illegally. If the other ones, again, youngsters, 17-year-olds, arrested with multiple weapons in Maryland. The 19 and 20-year-old suspects who were charged in Fort Worth, chances are they can't go buy handguns legally. Now, as you look at all these, you haven't heard the phrase AR-15, except, well, Philly had an AR platform rifle of some type. The other ones didn't. None of these other ones had pistol braces. So again, we're watching the ATF and the people in Washington focus on pistol braces and bump stocks and assault weapons, whatever the hell that is. But they're not addressing the problem. Folks, to the law enforcement officers who see this or are watching this, you all see this problem on the streets. I see the problem on the streets. I worked the road for a long time when I was working EMS and fire. We all know that pistol braces and AR-15s ain't the problem. AR-15s don't account for that many murders. Guess what does? Thugs with handguns, kids with handguns, 17-year-olds running around with handguns. That's where you see it. Now, let's go a little bit further here. See, we're not the general firearms owners. How far can we carry that? Well, let's look back. Back in February in El Paso, Texas, a 16-year-old gets in an argument in a shopping mall with some other individuals, shoots 3. If we go back to April, Dadeville, Alabama, y'all remember the Sweet 16 party, where we had a whole bunch of people killed and a bunch more wounded at a Sweet 16 party. All the 6 shooters were between 15 and 20 years of age, all with handguns. If we go to Jasper, Texas, now Jasper was an after prom party at someone's house. And what happened? Well, 4 shooters pull up and they open fire on a party in someone's yard. All 4 shooters between 18 and 19 years of age. Now, when we look at a 16-year-old in the mall with a handgun, 6 people between 15 and 20, and then 4 that are all 18 or 19 years old, what are we seeing? These people should not be having or carrying handguns. Every single one of them probably got those handguns illegally, black market. So you can add any kind of background check you want to me, or fingerprints or whatever. I mean, as an instructor and a CWP holder and CWP instructor, I've gone through plenty of it. But these people aren't going through any of that. So you can add 42 more hurdles for the law-abiding citizen. Not one of those hurdles will affect the black market where these people are getting them. What do we need to do? We need to very, very simply come up with some way of dealing with it, some way of addressing this. How are we going to do? Well, they can't get them through conventional channels. Any law that addresses conventional channels is useless. It's a joke. And even in states, locales that require individual firearms registration, such as, say, New York State, well, guess what? These individuals don't go out and purchase a firearm and register their gun. Now, most states don't require registration, but even if they did, these people would never register their gun. Again, why would they? They're criminals. They don't care. So again, we need to come up with a way to address this, to get these guns off the street, but we need to do it in such a way without infringing on the rights of law-abiding citizens, without making the law-abiding person's life more difficult. We need to just deal with the bad guys. We need to deal with the problem children. Deal with the people who are causing the mess. Again, we can talk about how bad these 4 shootings were. Really interesting over the holiday weekend. Although there was not necessarily just one big notable one, as there were in these cases, the beautiful city of Chicago, 11 people killed, 73 wounded. I mean, honestly, that sounds like a battle total out of Fallujah. So, Chirac is doing what it's doing. And how many of those shootings do you think we'd fit into this group category? Underage, prohibited possessors, idiots spraying and praying into parties and groups and everything else. And again, this ain't your law-abiding gun owners. This is not your normal people. And any law you come up with, it ain't going to fix it. So let's go to that one step further and figure out, how do we fix it? Well, I've got some thoughts. I did a little bit of research, and I saw a really, really, really interesting program. And that program was something that made a lot of sense to me. And I want to share that program out there. Gun Crime Bounty Program. Now, this was run by the Polk County Sheriff's Office down in Florida. And it's kind of interesting. Through this program, tipsters can call in tips to PCSO, Polk County Sheriff's Office, or through their local Crime Stoppers number anonymously, to give information about either a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, or someone in possession of a stolen or illegally altered firearm, potentially firearms that are involved in crimes. Hey, the gun that was involved in that liquor store robbery that shot the guy, yeah, well, so-and-so's got it, and this is where you can find it. If an arrest is made and the firearm is seized, there is a $500 reward. So what does this do for a minute? Well, first off, it's run through Crime Stoppers, Heartland Crime Stoppers, I believe, and Polk County Sheriff's Office. You can look it up on their website, Gun Crimes Bounty Program. And I had seen this a while back and heard about it and did a little research on it. And really, the interesting thing is the tipsters can put this tip in for anyone who shouldn't have a gun, convicted felon, dirty guns, whatever. Now, this, instead of focusing on lawful gun owners, instead of focusing on people like me who buy my firearms legally through a store, through an FFL, go through my 4473 and my next check, people who legally carry my firearms where and when I'm allowed to for self-defense, defense of those around me, who have firearms in my home in case someone decides to break in and do something epically stupid. Guess what? This is putting the spotlight on the problem children with firearms and leaves the law-abiding citizens alone. So, and the greatest thing about it, it doesn't require the feds doing anything. ATF or Congress passing anything. They don't have to come up with anything. This can be instituted by any local law enforcement agency to address their local needs. So again, men and women in blue, my friends out there, my colleagues, if you're out there, if you are a local government, if you're a local mayor, councilman, city councilman, whatever else, and you want to address gun crime at the local level, see if this can be instituted by your agency. Look, tip us off to bad guys who have guns, the problem children with guns, and this will directly target criminal activity and get guns out of the hands of bad guys. Now, before you tell me, well, they'll just get another one. You're right, they probably will. And we'll pick up another one. Because now, any one of the little gang members, bad guys, thugs, whatever you want to call them, and I know some people are going to yell at me for thug. Yell at me all you want. I'll take that one. Any one of the convicted prohibited possessors, or let's say the 15-year-old who thinks he's going to be a badass, and he shows everybody his gun. Guess what? There's a new PlayStation coming out in a couple months. I wonder, is that gun? He's going to have to worry about it. Because if someone turns him in for that gun, they're getting $500 gift card toward their new PlayStation. Imagine that. Imagine somebody wanted to go out there, I think I'd like to get me a couple $1,000 this weekend. If I call in Bubba and Cletus and all these people who are carrying these illegal guns, I can do pretty well for myself. Every one of these gangbangers, every one of these criminal possessors, somebody knew they had it. You think of our gentleman in the Philadelphia thing. Again, I don't care that he wants to put on a wig and wear hoop earrings. Who cares? But if he's got 3 illegal guns, any one of the 7 people in the house, they're all worried about him and think he's crazy. Guess what? 3 illegal guns. One of those people could have dimed him out for a quick $1,500. That'd be a nice little chunk of change. Let's get these idiots to dime each other out. Because you know what? When so-and-so gets out of the joint, we all know they can be told they're a prohibited possessor, and half the time, what do we see? Felon in possession of a firearm again. Well, guess what? Let's put a bounty on these people's guns so that way we can get them off the street. Let's focus on the guns, getting the guns off the streets, out of the hands of criminals. Now, if somebody called me in and says, well, Sully's got a bunch of guns, cops can look up and say, nothing to do. They're not going to bother the law-abiding citizen because they can look up and see I'm not a prohibited possessor. On the other side of that coin, though, if I've got a bunch of convictions or I've got a rap sheet, as long as, Christmas coming, guess what? They can do that. And the thing is, the people who are out there playing games, being tough, showing their guns off to their buddies, showing what they're going to be strapped with, showing what they're, the same tough little gangbanging culture. The minute they let anyone know that they're carrying, that they're strapping, guess what? They put a bounty on their own butt. And that bounty can be done by them. Who knows? Maybe someone in the gang needs to make an extra $500. Maybe they've got an ex-girlfriend who doesn't like them. And she knows they got 3 dirty guns in their closet. Guess what? I wonder how many baby mamas we'd have turning these guys in saying, my ex-boyfriend, he's got this, this, and this down his closet. And what would happen? 3 dirty guns off the streets. The bottom line is we'd focus on the criminals with guns and leave the good people alone. We'd focus on the problem children. The problem, and I say children, who shoot up a Sweet 16, who shoot up a graduation party or a prom party. And it was really interesting because as I was putting all this stuff together and putting final touches and adding in the updates for the 7th about the arrests that were made last night, Friday night, El Paso, Texas, an underage party, someone showed up, argument ensued, and somebody shot up the party. So I think 4 to 6 injured. I don't know any fatals right now. Very, very early preliminary. And I sat there thinking, boy, I wonder if that's going to fit this same narrative. Underage kids, typically poor, if not crappy impulse control, carrying guns to be tough, to exercise their manhood or to prove they're badass or whatever. I don't know. I'm not even going to go there. But now all of a sudden, what do we have? We've got bodies on these guns. Yeah, when I was in school, we get into it with someone. We might scrap. We might throw punches. We may end up down on the floor doing a little ground and pound going on. When I was 15, 16 years old, I had no business carrying a gun. My impulse control, my temper, you didn't want to see me with a gun. You know what? I've grown up a hell of a lot since then. These kids don't have the chance to grow up. Let's get the guns out of their damn hands. And let's do it the smartest way we can. So no matter what all the politicians say and all the great political ideas of how we're going to save the world by better gun laws and ban this weapon and ban that gun and get rid of that pistol brace and do this and do that, it ain't working. We've said for years, we don't need more gun laws. We need more effective enforcement of existing gun laws. This program would clearly enable more effective enforcement of gun laws and get guns out of the hands of the people who ain't got no business whatsoever with them. Folks, that's all I've got. I want to hear what you have to think. Drop me a comment, hit the plusy, whatever the case may be. You think I'm right? You think I'm wrong? Am I an idiot? Am I a moron? Please don't just tell me I'm stupid or I'm an idiot or I'm a moron. Tell me why. Come up and tell me why. And check out our other videos on Rumble. Again, we're trying to do this to basically put out good information, put out valid information. Again, I don't fault, the people who are putting out all about, the Philly shooter is trans. No, the Philly shooter's not trans. Well, maybe they're trans. Or we've got these pictures. They sure look trans. You know what? I don't know. And honestly, without actually talking to that person and sitting down with them, they don't know. So whether they were a he, him, or a she, her, or a they, them, I don't know. But really, does that matter? I don't give a damn if they're trans or if they're, again, cross-dresser or autogynephilia or autoandrogen. Who cares? They shot people. To me, the most important thing is that they shot people, that they had an illegal gun they had no business whatsoever having. They had multiple, apparently, if that story is true. And again, Philly PD has seemed to come out with that right now. Let's deal with the fact they shot people. That's my first one. Maybe if we do this and we get some of this stuff out of the hands of kids, and again, it wouldn't affect the lawful possessors like me. Our sheriff's office locally tomorrow could start this up. I'd never know they were doing it or not unless I heard it advertised on TV. On the other side of the coin, anybody in any of the gangs would know, because they'd know if they were out on the street with a gun and anyone knew they had a gun, they're putting a price on their own butt. Be a good thing. Folks, be safe, be smart. If y'all have anything, please drop me an email. Otherwise, I'm gone. I'm done. Y'all have a wonderful weekend, and please be safe. Bye.